League results show, week 10, matches played on the 27th, 8th and 29th. Of course, this week we've had to face the tragic death of the chairman at Leicester City, Mr. Vichai Srivaddhanapan, after the tragic helicopter crash following the game between Leicester and West Ham. I'm not going to dwell on that. I talked about that in a previous podcast. Let's try and keep to the football. So anyway, Leicester were without Vardy. He was on the bench. There was some dispute about why he was. He claimed he was fully fit, but Pure had other ideas. And Arnautovic was out for West Ham. He was sick. There was an early goal by Iheanacho, which was disallowed for offside. But on the half hour, a free kick for West Ham, Balbuena connected and his header hit the upright, but it rebounded back to him and he was able to slot it in for 1-0. West Ham, not long after, had Noble sent off for a rather nasty challenge, straight red there. But in the second half, the Foxes were in charge and they had quite a number of chances. Vardy was on as the second half sub. Maguire hit the bar, but eventually, a minute from time, Ndidi, with a deflective shot, got the equaliser. And so it ended in a draw. To Anfield now, Liverpool at home to Cardiff. The Cardiff boss had already suggested that there was no way that his team were going to beat Liverpool. Come on, Warnock, try and be a bit more positive. Lallana was in from the start, as was Lovren. Firmino on the bench. The first half, eventually Salah broke through, a typical poacher's goal following up two blocked efforts, and that was 1-0. Well, Cardiff survived to the break. Into the second half, they seemed to have gained a bit of confidence after that stirring first half performance. They started brightly, but on 66 minutes, Mane got the second with a blistering left foot shot into the bottom corner. But the Bluebirds again responded and they got a goal back through Patterson on 77 minutes. This seemed to be the fuse paper to ignite Liverpool, and they scored another two. Shaqiri, a class act, a nice shimmy, created some space and then stroked it in the corner, and then Mane got the second for himself, his brace, and Salah again on the break, deft pass to Mane, who chipped over Edridge, and so it ended 4-1. Fulham at home to Bournemouth. Now, Fulham are struggling, and Bournemouth have been in a rich vein of form all season. The Cherries totally outclassed a naive Fulham and ran away with a 3-0 win. Goals from Wilson from the penalty spot on 14, following some clumsy defending. Fulham did still look occasionally good on the eye going forward, but second half goals from Brooks on 72, a classic counter-attack, and Wilson again on 85, and they were good winners by 3-0. Fulham had a man sent off for a second yellow when they were 2 down. I don't think it would have really made any difference. So to Vicarage Road, Watford also performing well, entertained Huddersfield. Well, poor defending has been Huddersfield's downfall, and classy finishing from Watford inevitably led to Watford going ahead on 10 minutes from Pereira. That was followed on 19 by Delafeu, a jinking run, and he caught the goalkeeper out of the near post. Ferreira danced through a wall of defenders to hit his drive home. So that was 2-0. Foster, to be fair, made a couple of good saves to keep out the Terriers, and they hung on for 2-0 at the break. But it was inevitable that Watford were going to win this one, and Success added a third late on 80 minutes, following a neat routine of flicks. Strong performance from the Hornets, and Javier Gracia delighted. Let's go to the Amex now, and Wolves were the visitors. Now, Brighton have been pretty tough to beat, it has to be said, and Wolves have come up against a bit of a reality check with regard to the Premier League. It's a case that not always the best team wins, and this was the case at the Amex. A first meeting since 1982. Murray, who was back after that concussion last week, grabbed the solitary goal on 48 minutes. Either side of that, Wolves were by far the better side. They must be wondering why they lost, given the chances they had. But Ryan was strong in Brighton's goal, and the strikes from Neves and Jota and others just didn't have that extra slice of luck. So Nuno was bewildered at yet another narrow loss. Southampton against Newcastle. Well, it doesn't present as a particularly enterprising fixture. They were both desperate for points. Southampton definitely had the better of a first half that was short on goal scoring opportunities. The same pattern after the break. Long nearly grabbed the winner, but it shaved the post and it ended goalless. So to Sunday's action, and firstly to Selhurst Park. Palace had lost a few recently. Arsenal were on a 10-match winning streak in all competitions, and they looked good from the off. Palace, well, they were waiting for their first goal in the league, and early on Zaha hit a post, and to be frank, they were playing attacking football. Townsend was just wide after a flowing move. Arsenal had an early chance that Lacazette blazed wide, but in the last minute of the first half, Mustafi made a rash challenge on Kouati, and the Serbian Milivojevic converted 1-0 from the penalty spot. Remember, he missed one last week. So 1-0 to Palace at the break. Second half, the Gunners came out of the traps and very shortly had turned it around. Firstly, a Xhaka free kick flew in like a rocket, a real humdinger, and then on 56 minutes, a disputed goal for Aubameyang that looked like it followed a handball from Lacazette. It just crawled over the line, so Arsenal ahead 2-1. The Palace faithful were thinking, here we go again, but they showed great fighting qualities, and in response, Zaha was felled by Xhaka in the box, definite penalty, and that man Milivojevic stepped up and converted his second penalty. It ended 2-2, a deserved draw for Hodgson. Burnley, they were at home to Chelsea. I saw some highlights of this. Well, there weren't any highlights for Burnley. Hazard, with a back problem, was rested, but it made no difference. Barclay and William were superb. Barclay's slide rule ball to Morata led to a cool finish early on. Two sharp saves from Hart kept it to 1. But Willian, unfortunately, part of his game is that he dives on occasion, and he got a yellow on half time. But he was accomplished, as was Barkley, and Barkley scored on 57 minutes, a great drive. And 5 minutes later, Willian also scored from a 30-yard strike, far too good for Hart, as it went right in the corner. Hart kept the score down, but eventually Loftus-Cheek as a sub grabbed the fourth. A complete rout. Burnley definitely back to the drawing board. Last game on Sunday, and it was at Old Trafford. Manchester United entertaining Everton. A very edgy, nervous performance by United is how I saw it, which contrasted with Mourinho's post-match interview, which was full of superlatives. I didn't see it like that at all. There were periods when they played well, but overall it was more of the same. They got the early break following a somewhat fortuitous penalty decision, where many thought that the Everton player had actually touched the ball. Pogba then stepped up and took an age to hit the ball, and it was saved by Pickford, but he followed up and prodded it home. After the break, a good flowing move by the Red Devils led to Pogba setting up Martial, who hit a glorious drive that curled inside the post, and United were 2 up. Many thought that this would now lead to them coasting to the finish line. Not a word of it. And a little later, a rather innocuous challenge by Smalling in the penalty box brought down Richarlison. Definite penalty, and should have been a second yellow for Smalling. And Sigurdsson stepped up and converted the penalty. Lukaku was on the bench. He did come on for Rashford late on. Rashford, to me, seemed to be trying too hard. His performances have been a little bit hit and miss, and he seemed to be overdoing it. He's got tremendous pace, but he was getting himself tied up in knots. As I say, Pogba at times is world class, but he still likes to showboat, as he did to let in Richarlison, who went over for the penalty. The Reds were hanging on at the end, and they crawled over the line 2-1. Everton didn't play that well either. And many said they deserved a point, but I'm not so sure. The Monday night match, well, it has to be said that although City dominated possession and they won 1-0, it was a rather disjointed, error-driven match, lacking atmosphere. The events at Leicester seem to be casting a shadow over proceedings. Mahrez got the goal on 6 minutes, and he gestured to the heavens, a sign that he was saying goodbye to the Leicester chairman. So anyway, it was another win for Man City. Spurs poor. So that's week 10 done and dusted. So we have Man City and Liverpool on 26 points. City ahead on goal difference. Chelsea are on 24. In fourth are Arsenal on 22, followed by Spurs on 21. And Bournemouth, yes, Bournemouth are 6th on 20. Watford are 7th on 19. And Man U behind them on 17. At the bottom, it's Newcastle and Huddersfield on 3. Goal of the week. It's that second goal for United, Martial. It was a wonderful strike.